I can still hear his laugh clearly. Not the warm kind shared over inside jokes or funny stories, but something harsher, colder, and dismissive. At that moment, I was in the break room, pouring myself a cup of stale coffee when Tyler walked in, the new acting CEO and the founder's only son, carrying himself as if he owned every inch of the place, which, technically, he did now. He didn't greet me or introduce himself. Instead, he leaned on the counter with folded arms, his gaze sweeping the room as if he were assessing livestock. "You're Sarah, right?" His voice was flat, almost uninterested. I faced him with a forced polite smile. "Yes, that's me, nice to meet you. Tyler, welcome aboard." He gave a smirk that suggested he was already bored of me. "Come to my office in 5 minutes. Bring your laptop." It wasn't a request, and an uneasy feeling immediately crept in. After over a decade at Cartwright Industries, I'd learned to spot trouble early. The clipped, detached way he said it twisted my stomach. 5 minutes later, I was in his office. No offer to sit, just the sound of his pen tapping rhythmically on the glossy desk, full of self-satisfaction. "We're cutting back," he said as casually as someone announcing a lunch special. "New leadership, new strategy. We need smaller, more flexible teams. You're not essential." Then that harsh, mocking laugh again, like he couldn't believe he had to spell it out. For a second, the room spun not essential. I had built the client relations team from nothing, landed major accounts when the company was barely surviving, burned the midnight oil through 3 mergers, 2 reorganizations, and countless restless nights I wanted to shout, to fight back. Instead, I gave a calm, deliberate smile. "Good luck, Tyler," I said softly, meaning it, just not how he imagined I packed my things quietly while coworkers watched from their desks, whispering behind cupped hands, some ready to object, but no one dared. I understood why. Here, staying unseen was often the best defense. Carrying my box to the car, memories swirled. Late nights, impossible deadlines, personal sacrifices. I'd missed birthdays, anniversaries, even my divorce hearing because the company depended on me. Now, all that loyalty was dismissed with a 5-minute conversation and a cruel laugh. But oddly, anger didn't rise inside me. Not yet. Instead, a quiet confidence settled. Tyler had made a grave mistake he couldn't undo, because what he overlooked, what he never bothered to learn, was that I wasn't just middle management. I was the linchpin holding the company's largest investor relationship together. We were weeks away from sealing a multi-million-dollar expansion deal with Orland Ventures, dependent entirely on the trust I had painstakingly earned over years of negotiation. The preliminary contract included a clause I had insisted on during a tense late-night call with their lead counsel. Any significant personnel changes would trigger immediate renegotiation, or could void the deal with one arrogant decision, and that mocking laugh, Tyler had activated that clause, though he had no clue yet. Sitting in my car, the city lights blurring into soft lines beyond the windshield, my phone vibrated. It was Lauren, a junior associate I'd mentored for years. "Sarah, is this true?" she whispered, as if louder speech would make it worse. "Yes," I replied simply. "I'm out." A pause, then in a shaky voice. "You were the only reason Orland trusted us." I closed my eyes. "I know." Another heavier pause. "What happens now?" I opened my eyes, gazing into the indifferent quiet night. "I guess," I said slowly, "they're about to learn what happens when you remove the wrong cornerstone." Lauren stayed silent. No words needed hanging up. A tired part of me felt a strange, bittersweet relief it was over. Or at least my chapter was. For now, because Tyler's first day wouldn't be remembered for visionary leadership or efficient restructuring. It would be marked by something else tomorrow. When investors called and the board demanded explanations, he'd realize just how crucial I truly was. I barely slept that night. Not restless, just wide awake, staring at the ceiling, sensing the electric tension in the air, like the calm before a storm by 7 a.m. I sat at my kitchen table, cold coffee forgotten, scrolling absent-mindedly through news updates on my phone. Nothing yet. No signs of trouble. Maybe, I thought, they'd fix it before it spiraled. But deep down, I doubted it. At 8:13, my phone buzzed again. Lauren texting. Their panicking investors call at 9. Tyler's been holed up with legal since 7:30. A faint smile crept over me. The first genuine satisfaction since the firing I pictured it. Tyler pacing a glass conference room, bluffing through a crisis he barely grasped. Legal scanning contracts, spotting the clause I demanded. Horror dawning on their faces, I sipped my cold coffee. The day was just getting started at 8:45. Another message from Matt, a finance friend. Sarah, it's Chaos board members calling already. They found out about the firing yesterday and want to know how it impacts the Orland deal. I leaned back. It was unfolding faster than I'd expected. Orland Ventures wasn't just any investor. They were the power behind companies like Cartwright. Their name opened doors. Tyler's arrogance hadn't just risked a deal. It shattered their trust by 9:05. The fallout exploded, Lauren messaged again. Investors on the call, now Tyler's stumbling Mr. Cartwright just barged in. I straightened. Mr. Cartwright, Tyler's father, had been semi-retired, traveling the company's offices worldwide, letting Tyler prove himself. He hadn't planned to be here this morning, so his arrival meant trouble was worse than I'd thought. At 9:21, Lauren sent a final text. You won't believe this. Mr. Cartwright yelled at Tyler. What have you done? That was the key to the deal. Everyone heard it. I exhaled slowly, a mix of sadness and grim satisfaction washing over me. It wasn't just about the deal. It was everything I had built over the last 10 years. The trust, the bonds, the very foundation that had made Cartwright Industries formidable. Tyler had tossed it all aside without ever stopping to consider who had built it. At 9:30 a.m., my phone rang. An unknown number almost didn't pick up, but curiosity won. Sarah, this is Mr. Cartwright. His voice was tight, strained, like a man barely holding himself together. I need to talk to you today. I paused, letting the silence stretch. I could almost hear desperation seeping through the line. About what? I asked, steady but calm. The Orland Ventures deal, he said immediately. They're reconsidering. They say the termination of key personnel breaches the preliminary agreements. They want a meeting, with you only, no one else. A long silence followed. Please, Sarah, he added. We didn't realize. I cut in gently. You didn't ask. He exhaled heavily. You're right, and Tyler didn't understand. I thought he was ready. I didn't answer. Nothing to say. I'll come in, I said at last, on one condition. Anything, he said without hesitation. I deal directly with you, not Tyler. Another pause. Agreed. I hung up, placing my phone down carefully, hand steady. It wasn't anger or even vindication I felt. It was quieter, deeper, clarity. For the first time in years, I wasn't chasing approval or recognition. I was standing firmly in the value I knew I brought. And if they wanted me back, even for now, they'd meet me on my terms. Getting dressed, pulling on a sharp, simple suit, I caught my reflection in the mirror. Lines at the corners of my eyes, silver streaks near my temples. Proof of every quiet battle fought while others took the credit. Today would be different. Today I wouldn't fight for a seat at the table. Today I was the table. And Tyler, poor arrogant Tyler, was about to discover what it meant to lose someone who had been essential all along. The lobby was blindingly bright when I walked in, sunlight bouncing off polished marble floors. It felt strange returning to Cartwright Industries, not quite as an employee, but as something else, something stronger. The receptionist looked up and straightened immediately. Miss Bennett. Sarah, she stammered. Mr. Cartwright is expecting you on the 11th floor. I nodded calmly. As the elevator doors closed, I caught my reflection in the gleaming steel, composed, sharp, unreadable, exactly what I needed to be. When the doors opened, stepping onto the executive floor, the atmosphere shifted instantly. Conversations hushed, heads turned. People knew, not just what had happened, but why I was here now. Tyler stood near the glass conference room, arms crossed, fake laughing at something a junior exec said. When he spotted me, his face drained of color, quickly masked with a smirk. Look who's back, he called loud enough for half the floor. Couldn't stay away, huh? I didn't stop, didn't respond. Didn't even blink. I walked past him. The soft click of my heels, the only sound in the sudden silence. Let him flail. Let him scramble. His words couldn't reach me anymore. Mr. Cartwright met me outside his office. Older than I remembered, tired, frayed in a way no suit could hide. "Sarah," he said quietly. Offering his hand, I shook it firmly, but without warmth. There were things to say later. For now, we had a deal to save inside. The windows framed the city skyline like a painting. He gestured for me to sit. "I'm sorry for how this was handled," he began low. "You didn't deserve it." I let the silence stretch a moment longer, nodding once acknowledgement, not forgiveness. He cleared his throat and laid a thick file between us. "The Orland team is waiting on a call. They're ready to pull out. Unless you're personally involved, I bought us a few hours." I opened the file. Panic everywhere. Hurried notes, amended contracts, emails sent at 2 a.m., begging for reconsideration amateur hour. I closed it calmly. "I'll talk to them," I said. "But first, I need this in writing." He didn't hesitate. Already printed and waiting was a letter formalizing my authority over the Orland deal, with no interference from anyone, especially Tyler. I scanned it carefully, then signed. Only then did I allow myself a faint breath of relief. "Let's get started," I said. He nodded, reaching for the speakerphone. Before dialing, there was a sharp knock, and Tyler stormed in without waiting. "This is ridiculous," he snapped, glaring at me. "You're going to let her—" "Enough!" Mr. Cartwright barked, voice snapping like a whip. Tyler blinked, recoiling. "I trusted you," Mr. Cartwright continued, voice shaking, not with anger, but disappointment. "I trusted you to lead, to respect the people who built this company, and instead, you gutted it like a toy you didn't understand." Tyler opened his mouth, but Mr. Cartwright cut him off. "You fired the one person holding together our most important partnership? You didn't even read the personnel clauses. You risked the company's future for what? Your ego." The room crackled with tension. I stayed silent, letting Mr. Cartwright fight this battle. "You're suspended from all decision-making, effective immediately," he said. "Legal is drafting the paperwork now. If the Orland deal falls through because of you, the board will vote on your removal." Tyler's face flushed a deep red. For the first time, he looked truly stunned, as if reality had finally shattered the walls of entitlement he'd lived behind. "This isn't over," he hissed at me. Storming out, I didn't respond. Not worth it. Once the door slammed, Mr. Cartwright sagged into his chair. "I should have seen it coming," he muttered. I met his gaze steadily. "Blind faith is dangerous," I said quietly, "especially when it blinds you to the truth." He gave a weary nod and punched in Orland Ventures' number. As the line rang, I straightened, ready to re-enter the arena. Not for them, not for him, but for myself. Because sometimes the strongest statement isn't slamming the door on the way out. It's walking back through it stronger than ever, setting new terms. The call connected. The room fell silent. "Good morning," I said, voice steady as the speakerphone clicked on. I could hear faint office sounds on the other end, papers shuffling, keyboards clicking, and the quiet tension of people holding their breath filled the room when Jonathan Pierce, the lead partner at Orland Ventures, spoke. His tone wasn't angry. Worse, it was cold and measured. "We were surprised to learn of your departure," he said cautiously. I glanced at Mr. Cartwright, who sat stiffly in his chair, fists clenched atop the desk, silent. "My departure," I replied evenly, "was neither voluntary nor strategic, I assure you of that." A pause followed, and I could almost sense them weighing my words, debating whether to place their trust in me. Jonathan's voice returned, clipped. "We believed you were integral to this deal. That much of the trust we extended was because of your personal stewardship." "You were right," I said simply, "and I take that responsibility seriously." Another heavy silence wrapped around us, tightening like a noose. They were giving me a chance. One chance I leaned forward, voice steady. The conditions we negotiated rested not just on figures or promises, but on the relationship cultivated over the last 2 years. A relationship built on consistency, transparency, and mutual respect. I'm here to ensure that remains. Jonathan exhaled audibly through the speaker. "Then tell us, if Cartwright's leadership is unstable, How can we trust our investment will be protected? A harsh but fair question. I didn't flinch. Leadership isn't a title, I said calmly but firmly. It's accountability. It's action. I'm still here, standing by every commitment we made. The missteps of one individual, no longer involved, do not erase the foundation we built. If anything, it highlights how vital it is to trust the right people, not just those with fancy titles. Another pregnant pause. Mr. Cartwright sat motionless, almost afraid to breathe. Finally, Jonathan's voice softened. "We appreciate your honesty, Sarah." Before I could reply, a new voice joined. The sharp, crisp tone of Rebecca Lynn, Orland's chief legal advisor. "I reviewed the personnel clauses in the preliminary agreement," she stated. "We have every right to walk away without penalty." "I know," I replied simply. Another pause. "But," she continued, "we also acknowledge mistakes happen. Provided Sarah remains the primary liaison with contractual authority, we are willing to proceed, on one condition." I raised an eyebrow, unseen. "What condition?" I asked. "Cartwright Industries must formally acknowledge the mistake and recommit to the leadership continuity clause in writing." I didn't look at Mr. Cartwright. I didn't have to. This was the cost of lost trust, and the only way to rebuild it. "You'll have it by day's end," I said. Jonathan cleared his throat. "In that case, we're prepared to continue negotiations." The tension finally cracked like ice breaking beneath a heavy step. Mr. Cartwright relaxed visibly, relief washing over his features. "Thank you, Sarah," Jonathan added, warmer now. "We trusted you before. You've only reinforced why." The call ended with formalities and promises of next steps, but I barely heard them. All I felt was adrenaline thrumming steadily in my veins, not from fear, but from knowing I had held the line, been tested, and didn't falter. When the call disconnected, Mr. Cartwright exhaled deeply. "You saved us," he said, voice thick with emotion. "You really?" I raised a hand. "I didn't do it for you," I said softly. "I did it for the people who built this company long before Tyler tried to tear it down." He nodded slowly, shame flickering across his face. "You deserve better," he said. "I know," I answered. I gathered my notes, feeling the finality settle over me like a second skin. As I headed for the door, Mr. Cartwright called after me. "Sarah, we need you here, permanently. Not just to fix this, but to lead, to rebuild." I paused, hand on the doorframe. "I'll consider it," I said over my shoulder, and I meant it. "But if I come back, it'll be on my terms. No more silent sacrifices, no more invisible labor. If they want me to restore what Tyler nearly destroyed, they'll have to acknowledge the difference between inherited power and earned respect. This time, I won't let them forget it." The rest of the day passed in a blur. By late afternoon, new paperwork was signed. Orland Ventures had officially agreed to continue, and the company's board circulated a carefully worded memo. Effective immediately, Sarah Bennett will serve as interim head of client relations, reporting directly to the CEO. It was a win on paper, but anyone who's worked in places like Cartwright knows victories often signal the start of new battles. The first sign came barely an hour later. An email from HR requesting a routine meeting to reaffirm leadership roles after recent changes. Innocent enough, but the timing felt too perfect, too calculated. I responded politely, scheduling the meeting for the next morning. Then I leaned back, reflecting on the real story. Tyler might be sidelined publicly, but men like him don't fade quietly. No, they regroup, they scheme. If he can't face me head-on, he'll find another way. That evening, after most had left, I wandered the halls, footsteps echoing on polished floors. The office felt different, not better, not yet, but exposed, like all the corporate smiles and slogans had peeled away, revealing the raw machinery underneath. Power, ambition, fear. Outside the break room, low voices drifted out. "I'm telling you," a woman whispered, sharp and nervous. "She won't last. Tyler still has people backing him." A male voice answered, low and smug. "Doesn't matter if she saved the deal. She's a liability now. Too much spotlight." I turned and walked away before they noticed me. No need to know names, No need to confront. I already understood Tyler had set something in motion the day he fired me. A rot. Cutting him out wasn't enough to fix it. He'd left behind allies who thrived on the chaos, people who'd staked their futures on his rise, now scrambling to protect themselves. By the time I reached home, the weight settled on my shoulders like a lead cloak. I sat by the window, gazing at the city lights, realizing I had a choice. Walk away, take the win, leave the mess behind, start fresh elsewhere. Many companies would give anything to have someone who just saved a multi-million-dollar partnership under pressure. But I had a choice. Walk away or stay. Stay and fight, stay and rebuild. But rebuilding meant more than signing papers. It meant uprooting the rot at its core, enduring long nights, tough conversations, and facing enemies hiding in plain sight. It meant becoming a true leader, not just in title, but in action. Was I ready? I didn't know. Not yet. But one thing was certain. If I stayed, I couldn't survive by staying quiet anymore. I wouldn't survive by playing nice with those who smiled in my face while sharpening knives behind my back. I would survive by being exactly who they feared most. A woman who knew her worth, never flinched, and kept track of every detail at midnight while the city quietly pulsed around me. I pulled out a notebook and began writing every whisper, every strange delay, every suspicious change in files and meetings, the paper trail of shadows. Because if Tyler or anyone loyal to him thought they could erase me with rumors and whispers, they had gravely underestimated me again. Next time they came for me, I would be ready. The battle wasn't over. It was entering a new phase. And this time, I wasn't the one walking into traps. I was the one setting them. The next morning, I arrived at the HR meeting 15 minutes early. The conference room was cold, lit by harsh fluorescent lights that made everything feel sharper, more brittle. I took a seat at the far end of the table, notebook in hand, my face calm. If they were trying to set a trap, they'd find I'd brought my own 2 HR representatives entered, polite but overly formal. And just behind them, unsurprisingly, Tyler slinked in, a smug smile plastered on his face. He wasn't supposed to be there, but clearly he thought he still had moves to play. Sarah, one HR rep began, smoothing a folder. We're here to discuss some concerns raised about your recent behavior. I tilted my head slightly, feigning interest. Concerns? I echoed the second rep. Mara, a woman I'd worked with for years, looked genuinely uncomfortable and avoided my eyes. She didn't have to say anything. I already knew what this was. Tyler leaned forward eagerly. There have been questions, he said, voice syrupy sweet, about your ability to manage high-pressure relationships. Mara finished quietly. Some feel that your recent actions, while successful short-term, might suggest instability. There it was, the classic smear tactic. Plant a seed of doubt, whisper instability just enough to damage a reputation without proof, then step back pretending it was concern for the company. I smiled. A small, knowing smile that made Tyler's smugness falter for a moment. I opened my notebook, flipping to the pages I'd filled the night before. Before we proceed, I said crisply, I'd like to submit some documentation for the record. The HR reps blinked. Tyler froze. I slid the pages across the table. Detailed notes on every questionable interaction I'd witnessed that week. Mysterious email delays, files missing authorization, false rumors spread through specific departments, with dates, times, and witnesses. I've also reported potential IT security breaches, I added smoothly. Attached are confirmation emails from our systems department. An internal audit began last night at the CEO's request. Mara looked shocked. You reported this already? She asked nervously, glancing at Tyler. Of course, I said. Weeks ago, when the first signs appeared, I take my responsibilities seriously. The room fell silent. Tyler opened his mouth to respond, but found no words. He had played his hand too soon. And I was ready. I leaned back slightly, watching realization wash over his face like ink spreading in water. He was exposed, not just to me, but now to HR, to the systems department, and soon to the board. He had underestimated me every step of the way. There was nowhere left to hide. Moments later, Mr. Cartwright walked in, summoned by Mara's silent, desperate text. Seeing the documents and Tyler's expression, he didn't need an explanation. I think this meeting is over, Mr. Cartwright said coldly. Tyler sputtered, "Dad, listen, it's not what it looks like, she's just—" "You," Mr. Cartwright cut in, "are done." No yelling, no dramatics. Just a final statement of fact. HR escorted Tyler out that afternoon. No farewell party, no golden handshake, just silence. And me? I stayed not to prove anything anymore, but because leadership isn't surviving storms. It's standing tall in their aftermath when others run. In the days that followed, the office changed in ways I hadn't imagined. People met my gaze again. Departments started collaborating instead of hoarding information. For the first time in a long while, there was hope. Then, on Friday morning, Mr. Cartwright called me into his office. No ceremony, no applause. Just a simple letter slid across the desk. Chief Operating Officer, effective immediately. I looked up. "You earned it," he said plainly. I took the letter, folded it once, and slipped it into my bag. No tears, no speeches, just quiet, steady acceptance of what I had fought for and won. Later that evening, as I left the office, the city stretched out before me, glittering with endless possibilities. I knew challenges would come. New storms, new battles. But I also understood something far more important. Strength isn't about how loudly you shout, it's in how quietly you refuse to break, and no one, not even a spoiled boss's son, could take that from me again.